lady came up to me on the street and said, you're tracking my location, and it was yelling at me. So
what did you say?
I don't, I said, why did you go where you went? I mean, really, it's quite...
That's an odd grocery store choice you made there.
When media outlets like Politico laugh off scrutiny of powerful figures like Bill Gates, even as global institutions quietly draft blueprints for lifelong digital ID and vaccine compliance system, who exactly is meant to question where public health ends and permanent surveillance begins? Politico's recent interview of Bill Gates was revealing, not because of confrontation, but because of comfort. When asked about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s claim that he profits from vaccines, Gates dismissed it calmly, while the interviewer, Dasha Burns, laughed as she recounted the conspiracies surrounding him.
See yourself become a bit of a boogeyman in some right-wing circles. Is that something you think about? Has it been odd to witness that trend?
Well, I'd say it's pretty fringe. Robert Kennedy wrote a book that says I kill millions of children and make billions of dollars on vaccines. It's close to correct. I spend billions of dollars to save millions. So, it's just
a little off.
Just negate,
Well, say when Nick Fuentes goes on Tucker Carlson, or to a lesser degree, because less people saw it, obviously, when he came on my show, or when I spoke to Candace Owens, people tell you, why don't you confront them? Confront them. Get in there and say, Candace, Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens, as joint presidents of the United States and the world's richest people, wait. No, hang on, you're podcasters. It's much more important that Politico confronts Bill Gates. Now, this is us doing that now. We're saying that Politico should confront Bill Gates, right? Let me know in the comments and chat what you consider to be more important. Who do you think has more power and influence? Politico and Bill Gates combined, or Nick Fuentes and, I don't know, his audience, the Goipers. Is Goipers? That group of people whose name, I'm too old to understand it. I recognise that now. I'm misty-eyed for the days of Beatlemania, when it was like, look at these little mop tops. These Bobby Soxers sure love Jimmy Dean, huh? That Frank Sinatra, he's got 'em weeping and rolling in the aisle. Some say they were throwing their gussets. They were hurling their pantyhose at a young Elvis Presley today. Now it's things like groipers and words I don't understand and subreddits. I stopped understanding it when it was Milo. That's how long ago I stopped understanding it. I was like, I no longer understand this anymore. Now that we're into Nick Fuentes, and I'm just like, wow. Go right to the supreme consciousness, and then the culture, it's less relevant. What I'm saying is Politico don't confront Bill Gates, who has sort of financial power and influence power. I think we can agree with that, can't we? The moment set the tone. Power was not interrogated in this instance, it was reassured. What followed was not journalism, but insulation. There was no challenge on emerging scientific debates around vaccine injury mechanisms, including peer-reviewed research exploring myocarditis risks associated with mRNA platforms. Isn't it weird that I, Russell Brand, understand that now? I understand double-blind tests, peer-reviewed papers, mRNA technology. I understand all of that. 2018, I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't care about it. I just didn't care about gain-of-function research. I didn't believe that there would be any connection between Fauci and Wuhan. I didn't think there would be any connection between bioweapons and vaccines. All these things sounded mad and crazy to me. Now, I know that they're actually all true. It's just extraordinary.
I was used to seeing signs with George Soros, like he was the go-to boogeyman for a long time. And then suddenly I saw a sign with Bill Gates on it. I was like, wait, Bill Gates? How is this happening? Why is this happening?
The idea that turned into, that I'm using COVID vaccines to track people's whereabouts.
I'm sure you're very curious where everyone is.
Yeah, I mean, what? And now that I have that information,
what are you going to do with it?
What am I going to do with it? And it's, lady came up to me on the street and said, you're tracking my location, and it was yelling at me. So
what did you say?
I don't, I said, why did you go where you went? I mean, really, it's quite...
That's an odd grocery store choice you made there.
What are you up to?
Track my dog for me if you can. That'd be really helpful.
We'll have to vaccinate it, though.
He doesn't have all of his vaccines yet. He's 10 weeks. We're getting there.
There was no reference to FDA safety monitoring investigations examining deaths temporarily associated with COVID vaccination. These issues were not confronted by Politico and Gates, but silently folded into the category of ideas deemed unserious. Indeed, that's what happens. And I suppose I don't do myself any favours by going to work in this brilliant leopard skin toweling dressing gown and swigging down methylene blue the whole day, because people don't take us seriously because they've determined what leaders are supposed to look like in some extraordinary way. I was thinking about a good example of this recently. Yeah, it's when I was watching the Home Secretary in the UK, Yvette Cooper. Look, we've been trained to think that someone like Yvette Cooper, like she's just sort of there behind that podium, look at her, all serious, like that's what leadership looks like. Whereas, I don't know, pick anyone, David Icke, Andrew Tate, me, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, Tucker. Even when Jeremy Corbyn went from being a kind of dissenter amongst the ranks of Labour to its leader, look at what happened. He had to stop wearing those beige suits. That's what he dressed like before. Then he became leader and he had to start dressing like that. That's what happens. Look what happens even with someone even more neutral, Ed Miliband, who we interviewed on our show. He messed up because he ate a sandwich bad. Otherwise, that dude might have been the Prime Minister. He stood next to a tablet of ideas and people thought, that's dumb, you just don't have it. Now he's trying to reposition himself, and he has successfully done as a sort of a member of Keir Starmer's cabinet of bureaucratic tyranny, his cabinet of sort of gulag integration. But what I want to tell you is we've been sort of hoodwinked into believing that power looks a certain way, talks a certain way. Start challenging that and throwing that off. Of course, the culture's somewhat amended because we never used to have companies called things like Facebook. And just before that, there was like the billionaire in a sports jacket. I was the first one to do that. Like when Richard Branson coached us into, they don't have to wear pinstripe suits. And then Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, Greta Thunberg started to coach us into believing, wow, like billionaires can look kind of different and be sort of raconteurs and rakish and amusing. But when it comes to actual power, you still want certain aesthetics. Well, those days are over. I'm not suggesting we should have crackpots in Downing Street and lunatics in the White House, although depending on your perspective, you might think that both of those things have already happened. What I'm saying is that those systems themselves can no longer be sustained. You will see the rise, a continuing rise of techno powers and corporatized powers that flow forth from your Google, wacky name by the way. In the 90s, you wouldn't call a company of that size something so silly, would you? They would call things like the International Network of Investigations into. So what I'm saying is power's changing and we have to catch the hell up. Equally absent was any serious probing of Gates' extraordinary influence. Through the Gates Foundation, he is one of the largest donors to the World Health Organization, an institution that now relies heavily on earmarked private funding rather than independent public contributions. Multiple investigations over the years have raised concerns that this dependency gives Gates outsized sway over global health priorities. Shaping what gets funded. Researched and promoted. Is that likely? Is it possible? Politico itself has previously described Gates as the most powerful doctor in the world. Yet in this interview, that power went unexamined. The same silence applies to Gates' relationship with the media. Major outlets that routinely defend his initiatives also benefit from foundation funding, grants or partnerships. This does not require explicit coordination to influence coverage.
You don't need a formal conspiracy when interests converge. These people went to the same universities and fraternities. They're on the same boards of directors. They're in the same country clubs. They have like interests. They don't need to call a meeting. They know what's good for them.
I don't often sit on here and go, Rumble and Chris Pavlovsky, do I? I recognise that Rumble and Chris Pavlovsky, thankfully it's a smaller audience and smaller stuff like me and Rumble and Chris Pavlovsky is not so significant as Bill Gates, the World Health Organization. But a similar principle exists. I figured that if I started thinking that Chris Pavlovsky was trying to destroy the world, I might check in. Believe me, there's many times where I contemplate the influence of, say, Peter Thiel, who owns a little bit of Rumble, but I'm just watching and trying to understand it. And look, I'm mentioning it. Unlike the BBC or New York Times or any of the outlets that receive funding from Gates, are they routinely and regularly going, who is this guy, by the way? What do we know about him? What do we know about his agenda? How can we possibly call ourselves objective while he continually, subtly steers our organisation? Let me know. Let me know in the comments and chat what you think. It creates a culture of deference where certain questions are simply never asked. Laughter replaces scrutiny. Trust replaces challenge. Hey, if you want to read these in full, by the way, go to my Substack. There's a link in the description and sign up. Whether you're seeing this as a short or on Rumble, sign up to Substack, support me there and read these things in full. Did you take a vaccine? Then you've got spike protein coursing through your veins right now. I don't know how you're going to get that stuff out of your system. In fact, I do. The Wellness Company have created the Ultimate Spike Detox, designed to help your body clear spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support heart health. With natural ingredients like nattokinase, dandelion root, and bromelain, it's your daily proactive defense against a man-made virus. You know that a new study by Korean doctors claimed that COVID vaccines raise the risk of 6 cancers, including lung, breast, and prostate. Researchers analyzed health records from more than 8.4 million adults between 2021 and 2023, and their findings were published in Biomarker Research, a respected scientific journal. Check out that journal for yourself. There's a link in the description. If you're concerned about it, there's a way out. The Ultimate Spike Detox from the Wellness Company. Don't wait until symptoms strike or something unexpected happens. Something unexpected! Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. McCulloch, one of the top doctors who risked it all. Head to twc.health/brand and use the code brand to get 10% off plus free shipping. Go to twc.health/brand and use the code brand to get 10% off plus free shipping. Back to the content. Anyway, this matters because Gates' ideas are not confined to abstract philanthropy. They are being translated into global policy. In October, the Bulletin of the World Health Organization published a document funded by the Gates Foundation proposing a globally interoperable digital identity system to track vaccination status from birth, not episodically, permanently. A lifelong digital record tied to identity, health access, and compliance. Do you know what the Iraqis did with that? Somewhat tangentially relevant, but it's brilliant. Bill Hicks did a joke about us selling weapons to Iraq prior to the Iraq War. And the way that they got round that was to list what they were selling not as weapons, like farming equipment. Oh yeah, what it is it's an armored tank, and the farmer, he uses that because maybe he might get attacked by bees when he's planting seeds. Do you know what the Iraqis did with that? Like it's the Iraqis repurposing things. Like, can you imagine what this digital identity system will ultimately be used for? Let me know in the comments and chat. Is it possible this will be used for absolute control? Is there a gender absolute control? This proposal didn't emerge in a vacuum. In 2020, remember those days, Gates spoke openly about the need for a digital certificate to authenticate who's been vaccinated. We need them.
I'm a little surprised we don't have a website from the CDC where people are registering their interest in taking the vaccine, where we can coordinate things. And of course, we need some sort of digital certificate because we're likely to say to people working in nursing homes or hospitals or maybe even schools that they need to authenticate that they've been vaccinated, and even travel will have some of that. So it's exciting that Pfizer did a great job, broke every record, but now this distribution challenge, including getting for the world, over 10 billion doses, it's very daunting.
What were you? At the same time, critics warned that such systems would not remain limited to COVID. They would expand, link, and harden into infrastructure. Those critics were dismissed as paranoid or sometimes rapists. The WHO blueprint reads like confirmation. The document defines its ambition in stark terms. Digital transformation is the intentional, systematic implementation of integrated digital applications that change how governments plan, execute, measure, and monitor programs. This is not about record keeping, it's about restructuring the relationship between citizen and state through code. The stated purpose is equally explicit. The transformation can accelerate the progress towards the Immunisation Agenda 2030, which aims to ensure that everyone, everywhere, at every age, fully benefits from vaccines. Oh, benefit, eh? What are you benefiting from? I'm benefiting from seizures. I'm benefiting from myocarditis. I'm benefiting because I can't get an erection. Well, you are a child. Oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that as a child.
The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the value of digital health solutions in facilitating access to health services. While the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic is now over, investments in digital infrastructure remain an important resource for health systems and for economies and societies at large. Like many countries, the European Union made significant investments in COVID-19 certificates to help people move around as safely as possible during the pandemic. The European Union's certification system was used by all 27 EU member states and more than 50 other countries. Building on the success of the EU system, WHO is proud today to launch the Global Digital Health Certification Network. So thank you so much to European Union for the excellent certification system that you have transferred to us, and we have the chance to build on it. WHO will begin operations of the network today with the existing COVID-19 certificate as a global public good. Soon after, we will expand this infrastructure by incorporating other use, such as a digitized international certificate of vaccination, routine immunization cards, and international patient summaries. WHO will continue to work with all regions to ensure that the network is accessible globally.
In practice, this means global vaccination compliance is digitally enforced. At the centre of the proposal is birth-registered digital identity and lifelong tracking. The document explains that when birth notification triggers the setup of a personal digital immunisation record, health workers know who to vaccinate before the child's first contact with services. Have you ever tried to get a kid in or out of hospital without vaccinating it? It's not easy. I've had kids. I've got some in my house. They're mine. Would you believe, at least God trusted me to raise them and look after them. They're actually God's. But the state, if you don't immunise them straight away, they're like, oh, well, you're not immunising them. Yeah, no, this thing happened in 2019 where we stopped trusting you, not because you're a bad person, you're clearly a good person, but the influence of the medical industry and the pharmaceutical industry on health service providers is so vast and terrible, you probably don't even know that you're lying right now. So I'm having to bypass you and stop trusting you. Different when it comes to my boy's heart surgery. Now, thank you, Victor Sang. Thank you, Dr. Oz. Thank you, brilliant surgeons and experts at Great Ormond Street who conducted that. But when it comes to the administering of pharmaceutical products, I'm going to make sure that there's not some weird chain of influence. The WHO has openly declared that it has a 2030 plan where everyone will be immunised. All it takes is the tiniest tweaks. And before long, say you're a bit lethargic and quiet, you might be getting a little bit of pep in your step for your gulag work. Say if you're like me, methylene blued up, go to tryreborn.com by the way, methylene blued up and super sharp and fast the whole time, you might need bromiding down into compliance. Be careful what you wish for, be careful who you are, be careful who you trust, praise Jesus. A human being enters the world and is immediately logged into a compliance database. Who do you belong to? Where is your freedom? The identity is not abstract. It's personal. A newborn whose electronic immunisation record is populated with personally identifiable information benefits because health workers can retrieve their records through unique identifiers or demographic details. The system generates lists of unvaccinated children. Parents are reminded. Follow-ups are automated. The language is, and pay attention to this, managerial. The implications are permanent traceability from cradle to grave. Why not just hand the baby straight over and then fling it into a coffin? In a sense, if you think of the visual metaphors of the Matrix, they're in a kind of coffin. They're in a kind of esophagus, a kind of a sepulchral tomb from the minute they're born. They're grown in that. At the moment, as Silky Carlo said, she's Big Brother watch, they want total absolute control. You're in an open prison. Well, an open prison is just essentially a womb. It's a fully controlled environment in which your movements are restricted and you're controlled. The nation state wants to be dependent on their myth system, either a kind of pagan devouring mother or an overreaching overlord father. It's not coincidence that Orwell, that great genius, uses the synecdoche, big brother, to describe the leader. He's like a stronger family member. He loves you, but the price of that love and protection is total control and total surrender. Mobility does not provide escape. With a national electronic immunisation record, a child can be followed up anywhere within the country and referred electronically from one health facility to another. Movement becomes a feature, not a barrier to surveillance. More alarming still is the integration of vaccine status with socio-economic data. The WHO document explicitly endorses merging immunisation records with information such as income, ethnicity and religion. All the while, they're telling you, hey, diversity is our strength. They're logging you on the basis of whether you're black or queer or Arab or straight or white. You think your identity's in that? That's just part of your tagging system. Your religion, same deal, unless it's a true religion that connects you to a power so great that you don't care if they kill you. If you don't got that, pretty soon you don't got much. Registers that record household asset data for social protection programs enable monitoring of vaccination coverage by socio-economic status, such as household income, ethnicity, and religion. Compliance is stratified. Demography becomes a variable in enforcement. The paper also normalises conditioning access to core aspects of life on digital proof. Some countries require proof of vaccination for children to access daycare and education, and evidence of other vaccinations is often required for international travel. Do you see the control? The authors then explain why digital systems are preferred. Digital records and certificates are traceable and shareable. Traceability is the point. Shareability is the power. If you had good principles behind it, if behind this was Christ, and remember, Christ is accessible to all of us individually. If you were accessing Christ, if I was accessing Christ, if everyone in this system, that would be a great system. It would be a great system then, because you'd know that everyone would be like, well, there's no point in me exploiting this because this is a temporary blip. I'm only here in exile very briefly, so I'm not going to kill people or control people. And then, of course, Christianity allows you and affords you the grace of knowing that you too, you will be your own jailer. You will fall into the trap of thinking, oh no, I don't care about that. I just want this thing for me. I just want this bit of sex or this bit of money or this bit. It understands that about you. It understands your fallenness. To give godlike powers to a godless entity is cultural suicide. Artificial intelligence is woven throughout. The document promotes AI for identifying, targeting the unreached, combating misinformation, hello, and predicting service needs. This is not passive analysis, it's behavioural targeting, speech monitoring, influence operations framed as public health. The ambition's global, of course. The authors call for fast healthcare interoperability, resources to be recognised as the global standard for exchange of health data, i.e. one interconnected global system of total control legitimised through vaccines. First of all, they have to get you primed that pandemics are a continual threat. And then they deliver on that threat by making viruses in laboratories that when they escape do cause considerable problems. Then they benefit from being able to vaccinate you, but even the profits from vaccines are nothing compared to the ability to set up these systems of control. All along this sort of terrible circuit of corruption, there are people benefiting. Even someone like me is benefiting from, I'm a social media voice that benefits from the new countercultural possibilities that are born of a corrupt, controlling, centralised media. But the real beneficiaries are big pharma, they're benefiting through profit, big tech through control, big government, the ability to regulate, until at the end, the primary beneficiaries are whoever is behind all this. And Bill Gates is probably quite close to the centre of that. I'm not suggesting that he's a Satanist dressing up in robes, sacrificing kids or whatever, but I would be super interested to know how many times he went to Epstein Island and what he did there. I'd be interested to know that. Let me know in the comments and chat if you would. He's having no restrictions on his travel, is he? He's popping off to Epstein Island, to this weird blue and white cube thing they've got there. What does that even mean? Apparently at his leisure. Borders become irrelevant. Compliance travels with the individual. That's for us. For Bill Gates, pop to the island whenever you want. Community health workers are instructed to identify under-vaccinated children during home visits and other communities, referring them through electronic reports. Every interaction becomes a checkpoint. Every service a node in the grid. The document openly acknowledges who funded this work. This work was supported by... This is me doing a drum roll. It's not good. I don't know why I'm doing a weird rhythm. This work was supported by the Gates Foundation. The alignment's not hidden, it's declared. This is the context Politico avoided. Gates was allowed to laugh off suspicion while backing a system that permanently links identity, health status, socioeconomic data, and AI-driven monitoring on a global scale. 5 years after his calls for a digital certificate to authenticate vaccination, the infrastructure to make that certificate lifelong and universal is being proposed by the world's leading health authority, with his foundation's backing. The guy's a genius, isn't he? He's a genius. He's like a supervillain. Are we going to see supervillains like that? Have we seen that version of a supervillain in a movie yet? Have we seen that one, like the nerd one? Has a movie done that? I suppose the James Gunn Superman is still a little bit, peppy. Anyway, I suppose it's hard because you villains have to be charismatic. I've played a couple myself. Sometimes I've been unwillingly cast to play a villain in an entire culture for a while, and frankly, I don't agree with it. All this unfolds as societies become visibly more surveilled. Facial recognition, check out our video about the UK in public spaces. There's a link to that in the description. License plates, readers tracking movement, phones monitoring speech, social media sentiment analysed and shaped. The WHO blueprint does not resist this trend, it completes it. The danger is not even that vaccines exist or that public health systems coordinate. The danger is that compliance becomes the condition for personhood in a digital society. They want your total obedience. Now, when people sort of talk about Islam or Christianity or whatever, the idea of being devotional, of submitted, of surrendering to God, people kind of laugh at that in the modern world. But you are being submitted. You're being compromised continually. And this is the only way out. And I specifically mean Christ, obviously. I'm a Christian. You don't choose whether or not you worship. You choose what you worship. That's obvious if you're a drug addict or an alcoholic. Oh, yeah, I'm sort of worshipping this. I have to do it all the time. And if you try and stop me, it drives me crazy. I don't know what to do. But even more subtly than that, you're controlled. You're economically controlled. Involuntary worship through confiscatory tax, through compliance of your movements. You're in jail already. What I'm proposing is a global breakout. And I think that the breakout can only be achieved if we use the tunnels already dug by our Lord and Saviour, Christ Jesus, the first one to break out, he that conquered death. It can be done. Politico's laughter during the Bill Gates interview was misplaced. What is being built is not a conspiracy. It's written plainly, published openly and funded transparently. It's hidden in plain sight, which, with bitter irony, is what that documentary was called About Me, where actors played people alleged to have made complaints. And by the way, what a crazy time that was. The only remaining question is whether the public is allowed to debate it before it becomes impossible to refuse. Tell me, where else are you seeing this reported on? Tell me, how are we going to organise? And would you support this movement here? These people, the digital ID protesters, are at least trying to do something about it in the UK. You could follow and support them. So you're going to have to remain sharp, and you're going to have to consider a relationship with an entity that's superior to, beyond government power. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you think in the comments and chat. Remember, try reborn, methylene blue. That's how I think so fast, speak so fast. I can choose to speak more slowly if I want to, but I don't, because otherwise I get bored. So I just let it rush right through in a glorious blue stream, which, by the way, not to get into paganism, y'all, but Visuddha, the throat chakra, blue, methylene blue. Go try Reborn, give it a go. More important than any of that, though, if you can, please stay free. Get Rumble Premium to get additional content every single week, not just from me, but other Rumble creators. Click the link in the description.